I'd just like to welcome everybody back to our last session of the day. It's going to be a wonderful panel presentation by a nonprofit based in California called the Mentoring Club. Liesel Mendoza has come to our certification workshop. She's certified with our models of transformative emotional intelligence. She came to the conference in McAllen, Texas. I wouldn't venture to guess the correct year, but it's been a few.
2018.
And she had actually started the concept of her mentoring club nonprofit at that time. I remember trying to provide some feedback to her website that she was creating at the time. Liesel, congratulations on getting your nonprofit off the ground and doing such a wonderful job. I know that Margot speaks very highly of the job that you're doing in mentoring with experienced people and folks that are looking for valid mentors in their lives. We just look forward to your panel session.
Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you had a great lunch. And thank you for spending your time with us today in the Emotional Intelligence Conference. And just like what Rick said, I feel very connected and sense of warmth when I see Margot, Rick, Gary, because at the initial stages of operations of the mentoring club, they played a huge part. We are using scale as part of our onboarding process for our mentors and mentees. Thank you very much for that awareness that I got at the initial stages of the mentoring club. Talking about the mentoring club being a nonprofit organization, our mission is to provide a mentoring community for aspiring and seasoned leaders, such that anywhere in the world, anybody who wants to have a mentor can come in and connect with mentors. We guide them in understanding their goals, prioritizing their goals, and then understanding what are the development skills that they need to develop in themselves so that they can achieve their career and life goals. And in the process, we help them find meaningful work, which creates positive impact in the world. This is happening across the world. It's a global community of now over 300 mentors and mentees. And our vision ultimately is that as mentees become successful leaders themselves, that they will become mentors to others. So we will share some stories with you today. We'd like to focus on sharing the stories so that you can understand how mentoring can be transformational in our mentees and mentors. So it's the mentoring relationship. The second objective is to demonstrate how awareness of ourselves, and in this case, we focused on the key career and life skills that we have in scale, how awareness of those skills guided the mentors and mentees in their leadership development mentoring journey. And then lastly, this is an encouragement to everybody that it's never too late or too early, that mentoring can happen at any stage of our careers and our lives. Today, we will show examples in early career, mid-career, and advanced career stages. I'm Liesel Mendoza. I founded the Mentoring Club. We are joined today by three of our mentees, Nimreet, Grewal, Deepak, Sharma, and Tracy, Wiseman. So I'll let them introduce themselves in a little bit. And you may have seen their bios as well. For our mentors, we have Mo Rubenzahl and Pete Alexander, and Mark Clow wouldn't be able to make it, but we had enough time to do some recording of his responses. So I will play some videos for you. And then Renee, we were talking earlier, she really wanted to be here. She wouldn't be able to join us today, but she's with us in spirit. And actually, let me tell you a little bit more about my interaction with Renee. I met her at the 2018 Emotional Intelligence Conference at McAllen, Texas. And when she heard about what we're doing, she said, yes, I want to be able to give back. I want to be able to volunteer as a mentor. So immediately after that, she signed up as a mentor. So I was thinking, hey, Renee, we're going to present at the Emotional Intelligence Conference. It will be full circle. We met there and now we're both presenting there. She's with us in spirit, and I told her we're with her in spirit and wishing her son a well. I'm assuming that most of the participants in the conference are familiar with scale. I wanted to put this up because scale has helped us understand what are the key things that we need to be aware, or the key skills that we need to be aware about ourselves when we're going into leadership positions, not just in career, but also in our lives. These are the areas that we looked at when guiding our mentees through their career and life journeys. I will request our mentees to first introduce yourselves. I'll start with Nimreet, then Deepak, and Tracy.
Hi everyone, my name is Nimreet and I've been with the mentoring club right out of my college from UC Santa Cruz. I have a degree in business economics, and then I made a transition with the help of the mentoring club into behavioral therapy, working with kids with disabilities. And on the side, I have my own eco startup, Suneha, that makes accessories from cactus leather. So it's been an exciting journey trying to balance my passion for kids and also having my side business.
Thank you, Nimreet. Hi, everybody. My name is Deepak Sharma. I can see myself on the screen. I'm lower right. Hello. Yes. I'm calling in from California also. And let's see. So I currently work at the University of California, Berkeley. I work in people and culture and do training and development with the HR team. And I've been part of the mentoring group, I think since it first started. I met Liesel several years ago, actually, at a New York life insurance seminar, in-person one. And it was this new idea about connecting mentors to mentees around the globe, and thought, yes, this would be a very good thing, just something I was looking at doing. So that's kind of my background. So I've definitely seen it evolve, but yeah, I've been a mentee for a while, and I've definitely felt like that I've grown with this program, and we'll share more on that with my mentor relationship momentarily.
I'm Tracy Wiseman. Hello, everyone out there. And yes, I'm connecting in from Pacific Northwest, Whidbey Island, which is northwest of Seattle right now. And just a quick intro. So I did civil engineering starting in high school for 7 years, thought I would get a degree in that, but I decided to switch. Thought civil engineering might be boring after a while. So I went back to UCLA and got an engineering degree, and I'm a software engineer since 1985. Currently a ServiceNow solution architect, my shirt. One of my claims to fame is I delivered the new Visa credit card transaction switch for Visa Europe at the formation of the European Union and the beginning of the processing of the euro currency at 5 nines availability, which is less than 6 minutes of downtime per year, millisecond response time. So that's a little bit about me, and I'm looking forward to talking on anything at all.
Thank you. And so we'll have Mo and Pete.
I started out as an engineer with degrees from Princeton and Stanford, but I soon pivoted to marketing and then to internet marketing. And today I'm a marketing strategy consultant. I specialize in scaling big company practices to work for entrepreneurs, 40 years as a marketing executive. And I love applying my experience to mentoring, because with today's new career professionals, mentoring them is a joy because they're so gifted, creative, and excited to make the world a better place. And I'm also the dad to a 12-year-old.
Hi, everybody. My name is Pete Alexander. I'm actually grateful to have several things that keep me busy. I'm the president of interior landscaping company in the Bay Area called Office Plants by Everything Grows. I'm also a professor of marketing for Antioch University, where I help inspire my students to develop key concepts of marketing, similar to what Mo was talking about, specifically to their area of interest. I'm a best-selling author on reducing stress in your everyday life, because I unfortunately learned the hard way that trading your health for your career is a very bad trade. And last but not certainly least, I'm a certified laughter yoga teacher and an improv comedy performer, because I absolutely love bringing laughter and joy to my community.
I will go ahead and play Mark's video for everyone.
I worked in the IT industry for 30 years, both in Australia and overseas. Throughout this time, I've actually gone through a number of in my mind, very significant transitions. I started off being a technical person, and then After a few years, I became a consultant, basically helping clients solve their management problems in IT. And then from then, another transition into basically managing of services within different organizations, and also transitioning from, for example, a manufacturer organization into a pure service organization, and then later on back again. I guess the reason why I mention a transition is that sometimes we are afraid of change. We don't know whether we should take that opportunity or whether we should just stay where we are when we are comfortable. But my experience says that we need to embrace changes. We need to be able to be brave enough to have confidence in ourselves, to leave what we are very good at and enter into a space which is a little bit unclear. And it's in doing so that you develop yourself and become more competent and become more enjoyable in terms of the work that you do. And the key factor I always say is, if you love people and you like people, then it really wouldn't matter what sort of work you do because you will enjoy it.
Focus on the stories now. What do we see as transformational mentoring relationships? We'd like to get started with the mentees telling us what situation you were in when you started considering reaching out to mentors or even the mentoring club. We'll follow Nimreet, Deepak, and Tracy.
Right after college, I started working as an auditor in Ernst & Young, and I did that for 2 years. And after that, I realized that it was not something I wanted to do long term. I lacked clarity into what I wanted to do. So that was my first thought of like, oh, maybe I need someone to guide me. And that's when I started looking into mentors, and I joined the mentoring club, trying to find that guidance, how to find something that is meaningful for me personally, and to make that career transition.
One quick note with Nimreet. So the first time I met her was at a lean-in Palo Alto event, and I was just starting the mentoring club then. So we went on a hike, and she said, "Oh, that's very interesting." And then months later was when she started to reach out again and say, "Hey, maybe it's time."
Yes, I've been with the mentoring club like right when it was starting, and before it started, Liesel used to like informally mentor me as well on hikes. So I've just been her mentee like since it started and even before.
Thank you for that, Nimreet. Deepak?
When I first joined this mentoring club, it was, like I said in my first intro, that it was about the time when it was first starting. It was a new concept, and I thought, sure, why not? But specifically for me, so my last job, I'm still at UC Berkeley, but I worked in student affairs and higher education. So I definitely did a lot with student services, student engagement. And that was essentially what my background was in professionally, got my master's in that. I've been on this job for about maybe 3 or 4 years. And I know naturally, like at that point in a career, that's usually the average lifespan of a job, 3-4 years tops, give or take, before you're ready to move into something else. And I thought about that. Well, if I didn't want to move specifically into the next step up, like I didn't necessarily want my supervisor's position and their position and to move my way up like through that same ladder, wanted to see what is a good sideways move to make? What are some other career tracks potentials? And that's what I really liked about this program. The idea was to be able to connect with folks that are in different industries as a whole and to see where that could go. So I think that was one of the first things that got me thinking a little bit about this, that a lot of my mentoring in the past had been with faculty or academic advisors or graduate advisors. I thought, okay, now that I've been a professional staff member for a few years, this might be a new way of looking at mentoring rather than the traditional track that I was already doing.
I really thank you for your trust in the program that I was setting up at that time, because you were part of our focus groups in 2016, and then you were also part of the trial mentor-mentee program to prove that this can work globally. Since 2016, Deepak has been involved in our effort. Tracy?
Hi again, everyone. The thing I forgot to mention last time is I am no longer a mentee, I'm a mentor now, but I'm reporting on both at this event. So how I got started with the mentoring club was I saw a couple of talks that Liesel was holding on emotional intelligence and career development and what do you aspire for or to do or to be. up in Redwood City. So I attended a couple of those, which were very inspiring. And then I talked to Liesel and I said, I'd like to sign up for mentoring. So myself, I'm a software engineer for decades, right? And my goal in the beginning of 2020 was to get a new job during the pandemic and survive corporate politics. So that's where I started.
For Tracy, in her case, she found us. She attended one of our events and then realized that, oh, even though she's so accomplished already at that time, management, executive level, I really admired that openness to learn more from others. And that's where I say, and at any point in our lives, we can really have some benefit from just opening up and saying, hey, I don't know this. Maybe somebody knows this, and I really want guidance on this. So looking at Nimreet's case, we were actually going for transition, right? So career transition from auditing to what? That was the big question mark. And in your case, Nimreet, you were able to reflect and introspect that you care about people with disabilities and that you want to do something in that field, and then you have that creative side in you as well, and you want to put that into some kind of a venture where it will also focus on the same community, kids with disabilities. In that journey, the way that you need to pivot, what are your key reflections and looking back now?
When I started, I lacked that clarity how to do that transition. So with the help of mentoring, I was able to narrow it down. I started with not knowing what to do, and I learned the importance of trying out different things and knowing it's okay, it didn't work out. Maybe there's something else out there. So I started with okay, I like working with kids, and then I narrowed it down. Okay, what are the options? What do I think I would like? So I think importance of trying, and also talking to a lot of other professionals who were in that field helped me a lot. The other thing that really helped is having someone along the way supporting you. It wasn't something transition I made over a month. If I remember, it was around like 8 to 9 months. It took me a while to get there. So I would say importance of also having the supportive community with you. And Liesel was there, always cheering me that, oh no, you can do it. The two important parts is having a supportive community and also trying out different things that you may like or may not. And fortunately, I was able to find that I wanted to work there. And I've been with the company since then now, and I was able to be promoted to a senior position.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Yes. And you had that interest on the side about your creative side.
I still love the business. However, it was just the hours and the structure of the business I didn't like in the corporate world, but I still wanted to have something of my own that was meaningful to me. What I did, I was like, okay, maybe it'll be a good way to combine what I like and trying to turn into a business. Question was, I didn't know how to do that. And that's why I also reached out. Okay, I need a mentor that can tell me how to start that foundation of the company. That's how I reached out to Mo. I was able to then combine my passion for kids with disabilities, and how I did that is I made a shoe that was friendly to people who had low motor skills. Combining that into business was exciting, and I couldn't have done it without the mentor's help.
Since you mentioned Mo, so then I'll turn to Mo for the next question. We start with informational sessions, right? So that the mentor and mentee can actually determine themselves independently of what I say, right? So because I can recommend, but eventually you decide. Mo, how did you feel about that first conversation? Did you think that it was a good match, or did you?
I thought Nimreet was very grounded. She didn't know what she was doing per se, because she had a job and she was looking to do something extremely ambitious, to start a company as a side hustle, so to speak. She had a really clear vision. The main thing about Nimreet right away was that she hadn't identified and given name to her values, but it was very clear that she She was value and passion driven. It's a cousin, right? So she relates to the disabled community through her cousin's needs. And she had a recognition of something important, which is that there are a number of ways to assist the disabled. In this case, there's a difficulty putting shoes on, but she realized that they also need something that's fashionable because there are a lot of shoes that can assist them, but they're ugly and expensive. And so she said, this is an opportunity. And then she overlaid that with an environmental concern by going with a vegan leather that she found. And so it was very ambitious, but it was driven by a fundamental vision. And then we had some conversations and I kept hearing the word independence. It became clear to us that word was a good tag for what she cares about. That was the main thing, is that she's driven by vision.
Passion and vision, and it all boils down to meaningful work. You were successful to transition to a career, Nimreet, so you're a behavioral therapist. And then eventually on the side, you were able to launch your business. And I know we were talking about the challenges of suppliers, logistics. You're so focused on doing what's good for the work, the profession that you have, being a therapist, and at the same time being passionately driven to launch this business. And you were stressed, positive stress. And that was when we actually said, oh, Pete, how was your first session with Nimreet, and what were your impressions?
Yeah, that was quite something. I actually wish I would have taken a picture of Nimreet the first time I met her on Zoom and the before and after. But we had an initial discussion and we talked about her goals. She was well in her career and she was working on her side hustle. She was talking about how her health was not doing as well as she wanted and she was very stressed. And I knew that I could help her because I thought back and I said, okay, so it happened to me in my mid-40s. Here's Nimreet in her 20s having her health start to take a toll. And so I really wanted to help her. And to Nimreet's credit, she really helped herself and applied on a weekly basis things that we would talk about. And it was an absolute delight to see the positive effects that it had on her health.
Thank you for sharing that. So I hope we've given the audience a good understanding of Nimreet's story. Now I'd like to go to Deepak's story. So as far as Deepak's story is concerned, he already mentioned something about moving from something that he loves to do too, but then it's like you reach the point where you ask yourself, what's next? Tell us a little bit more about that transition and your first sessions with Mark.
Folks in the room, it's a little bit when you take into account the field of student affairs, higher education. It's oftentimes folks that work within academia, but not specifically like on the academic side. Like I'm not a professor, but it's more so supporting student wellness, student well-being, student activities, student engagement, like anything related to student services. That's the line of work I was in. And oftentimes one of the trends that I saw was, even if people make side transitions within that or try something new, I thought, well, what is it about my job that I'm enjoying the most that I could use towards the next job? So at the time, I was working with student organizations that work with academic and professional development. So for example, like business fraternities, engineering honor societies, consulting organizations. And I thought, okay, well, a lot of times what those student organizations need is funds or money. The idea that they were very heavy into the scene of fundraising. Oftentimes, some of the consulting organizations would do consulting gigs with companies like Google, Microsoft, Airbnb, you name it, and use that towards getting a sponsored donation. And then thinking, okay, as a result of that they could now use towards their professional development. And I thought, like, wow, that is a really good story to tell. For everything that's development, you could use that towards gaining money. At least that's why I said getting money, but I know there's more than just asking for a check. Anyway, so those were the things I thought, well, what if I decided to at some point pivot my career into more of a fundraising role? Now, granted, there are some full-time fundraisers who that is their full-time job. is to do some of that mid to high level corporate level fundraising for institutes of higher education and nonprofits. And that was one of my first conversations I had with Mark, who's my mentor you met earlier for a moment online. I asked him, like, what are his thoughts in terms of how to use that as a way to tell my story for possible links into fundraising. And so that was essentially some of the first conversations that I'd had with him in terms of where we could go with this, what we could do, and how that might help. Interestingly, I did not end up going into that part of the profession. I can probably save that for the next part of my blurb. But essentially, yeah, so that was one of the first things I thought about was making that move. There is some tie within the institution of higher ed, but it was not in student affairs.
I remember when you were sharing this dilemma about loving the institution, loving the work, but you feel that it's time to move on to something and you don't know yet what that something was, right? So I think one of the trial areas was the fundraising, and then eventually now you are in talent development. The reason why I actually matched you, or I suggested to you to connect with Mark, was really his background in academics. He was my former colleague at Unisys. He was the vice president of the program that I was managing at Unisys. Being based in Australia, that was the 2017 trial program, right? So will this work? Strangers thousands of miles away, but similar background. I'm so glad that up to this day, you are still connected with Mark. So I'll go to Tracy. When I recommended for you to meet with Renee, you've done so many different things already. You're thinking of going into consulting, but then there's still that question about, okay, consulting, then what next? As I was thinking about Renee's experience, she has experience in education and consulting. How was your experience during your first meeting? Why did you think it could be a good match?
Your platform suggested a number of mentors for me, and I looked at them all and I decided I liked Renee the best. And what I liked about Renee is she has HR and communications experience. My goal going into working with Renee was getting a new job during the pandemic and surviving corporate politics. I had done consulting before, but I did get a job right away, which was with Cognizant Global Headquarters. They're headquartered in Teaneck, New Jersey, but they have 300,000 workers in India. So they have a USA-wide presence. Lucky for me, it was 100% remote, of course, during the pandemic, right? Yes, it was still consulting, even though I had a perm job with Cognizant. I was consulting with many, many, many other companies, scoping, proposing, delivering ServiceNow solutions. It really was a great first conversation. And with our first session, we set up that goal to get a new job. That was achieved quickly. And I have no doubts that she was the right match for me. So we worked together 2020 to 2023. I think it's a little bit over 2 years. She stepped back from mentoring now, but I am now mentoring at the mentoring club. I'm mentoring a ServiceNow person who wants to get a ServiceNow job. This would be his first ServiceNow job. Now, he's worked with ServiceNow at a couple of companies. He's in Washington, D.C. He works with all the agencies out there. He was the person that was assigned to roll back TikTok on all the government devices, things like that, right? So he'd had interactions with ServiceNow, and he just wanted to get a job doing only ServiceNow. And I have to say that the progression of my life and my career since working with Renee, both on and off at this point, I just got offered my ideal ServiceNow job yesterday. So
congratulations.
I'm on the moon with happiness.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
The next thing that I wanted to explore, this question I asked specifically Mark because it had something to do with organizing the model of the mentoring club. I mentioned to him that when I set up the mentoring club, and I said this earlier too, I was betting that strangers across the globe can come together in a mentoring relationship when certain conditions are met. So these are like my hypothesis. Number one, the goal of the mentee is achievable as agreed by both the mentor and the mentee. Number two, the mentor has gone through a similar journey in their work situation and life. And then number 3 is the mentor cares about the success of the mentees. The mentors in the mentoring club are volunteering their time and talent and experience. And really, the reward that they get is the joy of seeing success from their mentees. And then the 4th one is that the mentee is 100% committed to their own success and takes 100% responsibility for their success, right? So we're there to guide, the mentees do all the work. And so this is his response, and Deepak may enjoy watching this.
It is hard to help someone to move often from one vocation to another, because that is generally a harder thing to do than to just give someone some learning skills, because that is a longer term process and it requires a whole lot of personal commitment and also timing, because it is not something that will obviously happen in a very short time frame. I knew it wasn't going to be something that will happen over 3 or 4 months. And because this is my second exercise in 5 years, helping someone to move out from one industry to another, so I had some idea that it wasn't going to be a short-term commitment. I don't know whether Deepak thinks that, but in my mind, I knew it would be a longer process, and there will be other things that is embedded inside these skills and so on and so forth that we need to work through in order to accomplish the final goal. I am absolutely committed to see him succeed, because that's the whole reason why we do this, is to enable people to see and understand the direction that they want to take is actually achievable. And by taking it a step at a time, they actually slowly move towards it. So I am very comfortable that over the years that we've been working on this, and as you probably know, he achieved his goal actually in a few years. It wasn't the first year that it happened. And I was gratified to see that finally take place. So I think the conditions were certainly there, and they were important, and they were met.
Switching to the individual awareness that you experienced, looking at the skills that we just had in the chart. Let me start with you, Nimreet. Given that you've gone through several mentors, myself, Mo, Pete, and then you've also had an evaluation of yourself, you have your scale results. We did a scale assessment a few weeks ago. What are your reflections when it comes to being more aware of yourself through the help of scale?
When I looked at the result, I felt grateful to my mentors, and then also a sense of accomplishment, because it's not every day that I think about, oh, what skills I'm working on, what skills I need help with. So it was really nice to see with graphs, like, okay, these ones are that I've gotten better. It also helped me think about my future goals, to kind of also consider which one are the ones I want to take on with me, that I want to work on for the future. Another reflection I had, that I was quite surprised one of my skill went down a little. And then it made me think that, oh, why is that? So I know that is one area I want to focus on more. I was kind of ignoring that side. So it was nice to see that on a paper. It helped me prioritize what my goals were also for the future.
Deepak's case, we realized, oh, Deepak didn't take scale when he started in the program, but we had him take it several weeks ago. And what are your reflections, Deepak?
Whenever I've done my fair share of standardized tests like that, and it's always interesting to see, like, what context would I reflect on. So, and the reason why I say that, so now the new job that I'm in, I mentioned in my intro that I do training and development. And so I've been on that job for about 1.5 years now. So I think about this, like, the context of the mentoring club. Am I using this from something that I did a while ago, or is it something that I'm trying to reflect on now? And I thought, live in the moment, do it now, and this is possible. Because like as Mark said, when you look at making a career change or looking at switching industries as a whole, part of my role is working with folks that are not professional trainers, but who need that. I thought, like, okay, well, I have to be prepared for this, for these types of assessments in terms of how I might be perceived as either a trainer, a presenter, a facilitator. I thought that was kind of an interesting way of looking at it. Like it was quick at times, but then some of it might have felt a little bit repetitive, but that's okay. But I thought it was interesting to know is that what's the overall impact of me seeing myself this way, and could this be something that I use as a tagline later? So I'd say that's probably the one thing that I would want to use that for is, if somebody says, if Deepak were to be my trainer or to be my facilitator, what am I going to get as a result of that? And I think this could be something where I could even have that at the top of my LinkedIn page that as facilitator, this is the guy that you get, not just his job description, but his training style or his personality style. So I think that's one way that I want to apply that now, thinking because this is where I'm going to be using it moving forward, not necessarily looking at it from the past.
Nice reflection. Tracy, would you like to share your reflections?
I really enjoyed working with Renee. We would generally talk about relationships, work, and interpersonal goals to thrive and survive in corporate America, and then move forward to achieve these. For example, at Cognizant, they were trying to do a new billing system for our work. And they said, oh, you have to have this allocated, and anything you don't have allocated by various other people in the organization, you can't report time against it. I thought that was really strange. I ran it by Renee, and she says, yeah, you should definitely write something to someone saying, this doesn't make sense. So that really helped, things like that. I increased in the 2 scale reports that I took. I increased in 7 categories, which are self-esteem, comfort, empathy, time management, influence, physical wellness, and personal change orientation. The effect of that with Renee is I felt like I had someone to discuss strange situations at work and how best to professionally deal with those. I felt like I had someone had my back in figuring out what was behind strange work situations and how to proceed. That really helped me. I had not had that kind of support and guidance before.
Thank you for sharing that. And for Mo and Pete, when you observed, and you said some of this earlier already, but I just wanted to look at it from the strengths and areas of development using scale. Was it obvious to you when you met Nimreet, these are the areas that she's really strong at. These are the areas that I think I can help her on. How did that work out for you in the process? So strengths and areas for development, were you able to discuss those?
When I talked to Nimreet for the first time and discussed what was going on, clearly her work ethic, her career and personal communication skills were superior. I was very impressed with those. And also, she was mature enough to realize that she needed help with her personal wellness, primarily the stress management, because that was affecting her health. It didn't take a lot of investigation from me to be able to figure out that this was a good match.
Yeah, I agree. Same thing. Nimreet was largely, she's like a self-cleaning oven. She was aware of where the issues were, especially around stress. She has a very pronounced work ethic, but she took the coaching very rapidly to take some time for herself and to not be putting in that 60 hours a week in the end are never productive. The other thing is she had family members who wanted to help her, and she felt guilty accepting help from them. And together we helped her realize that that's a gift they wanted to give her for a reason, and that they gain a lot from that. And so she's been accepting help from her dad, and it's furthered their relationship, and it makes him happy to help his daughter. So it worked out well. The other thing is she noticed that she could use some help with time management. And this is a good example of where mentoring comes in. As an old dog, we know all the tools, or over time, we've acquired the tools and the practices that get us past, and we forget that you're trying to juggle all the plates at once without a strategy. And so it was something where you could have a 5-minute conversation and steer her towards some tools and some practices, and bang, that was a problem that was just fixed. And that's an investment that'll return dividends for decades. That came from Nimreet's self-awareness and her realization of what she needed.
We'll play Mark's take on Deepak's strengths and the development areas that he observed Deepak may have needed help on. I'll play 2 videos.
In the interpersonal skills area, the comfort, the empathy aspects were definitely his strengths. Because I'm not physically with him, I can't observe him, so I can't comment on his stress management or his physical wellness. He looks fine to me on the Zoom, and he's always pleasant enough for us to chat. And we're always accommodating to find the right time, even though he's in California and then I'm in Melbourne. We always manage to find the right moment when he's able to spend an hour plus with me on Zoom. He comes across as someone who is very comfortable with the conversation, raising issues, discussing his concerns. He's very emphatic when he comes to talking about other people's issues and the environment that he had to fit into. So I think those are his major strengths, which is actually reflected in his skill analysis. I don't recall him actually physically asking me in what particular area that he needs to improve on. In a way, I wasn't also openly telling him that these are the areas that you need improvement on. But I felt that as a developing leader, there were 3 traits based on the scale analysis that talked about that I thought he would benefit from if he was to spend some time developing them. So in our discussion, we did talk about time management. We talked about a range of things that was self-managing type skill sets. And because I personally believe that unless you yourself develop the confidence and a drive that you have in yourself, you're not going to be able to let people feel that you're passionate and committed about a certain path that you are taking. So leaders need to convince followers about their passionate activities and their beliefs. And that's why I wanted him to start to think strongly about what area he wants to develop his drive and his skill set so that he can be seen as someone that people will listen to. Because we all know if you listen to someone and the person speaks with no commitment and no passion, you kind of felt that it's just an expression of opinion. It's nothing that I should really take any notice of. And what convinces people about their passion is the way that you communicate, because you have that kind of passion. So developing of yourself, for me, is the most important part.
Mark said it pretty well. And I'll use the example of where I did actually reach out to him for some help. So when I started getting a few interviews for some jobs, asking him, there's always a lot of job interviews would have not just the answer of the questions, but to actually do a presentation, which makes sense. Somebody wants to see what you're like in action. So I thought that was one thing to ask him, like, how could I use past skill sets that I have, like for a job that it's going to be completely new to me? What are some ways that I could showcase that I understand the language, I understand the lingo, essentially, in the field that I'm trying to go into, in this case, learning and development, which became later, and to be able to talk about that, not with the lens of like the student services background. So he used a lot. Actually, one way that I'd have to say that he really did help me a lot was thinking about the world from a global perspective. So when you think about training and development, kind of ironically like what we're kind of doing here, but the idea that you have an audience that sees the world in a very different way. So we started talking about like the world economic system in terms of how Australia looks at it from what their governments are doing for the stock market, how that impacts Asian markets to then Europe, and very technical, but it's like, and even though I'm not even looking at like global markets for the job that I'm looking at, but this idea about how to build interconnectedness with any type of training or presentation that you do. And I thought that was pretty good. So, if anything, I learned more about the European Stock Exchange than I thought I would through that conversation. But as a result of that, the idea was when you showcase your skills out there, you showcase like how it can tie to what your audience is expecting. That's a good way to show that, like, yes, this person is likely to either be more seriously considered for a job, or that they are probably going to be a better fit for something that could be adaptable in the future. So I'd say, if anything, the idea of future-proofing your job search for what has yet to come, not so much filling in the shoes for the last person that left. So I think that was one way that Mark definitely helped me kind of think in that way for jobs that I'd be applying for in the future. And that really, I think it stuck with me for a while. So that was good. He wasn't specific on that, but taking that's what I'd like to say.
Nimreet, you've achieved your main goals with me, with Mo, and with Pete. You're now currently not having any mentoring relationship with mentors in the mentoring club, but from time to time you would ping us. If you have a message for Mo and Pete, please, based on your journey.
I feel very grateful for their help, and I don't think I would be here if I didn't accept their help. It took both part of me willing to also accept help and them having the genuine interest in my development to always be listening. I feel very grateful, and thank you for helping me achieve the things I wanted to achieve, but I didn't know the way to get there, guiding me through that baby step for me to have that goal. And I've been still utilizing everything I have learned from my sessions from them literally on a daily basis, especially the stress management and the relaxation, my accomplishment lists instead of only to-do lists. I feel very grateful and thank you.
All right. Well, do you have any message for Nimreet, Pete, and Mo?
I look back and there's a laundry list of things that Nimreet was able to accomplish. Having that daily accomplishment list is just one of them, but having gratitude every day and prioritizing taking walks for her health, seeing that her physical health issues were resolving themselves because she was taking care of her health. That all had to do with things like having headaches and not sleeping well, and that worry, anxiety that Mo mentioned, using visualization for that. When we talked about the trolls that you had on Kickstarter, and we talked about doing a game with your friends to not let that stick to you. You're selling yourself short on all the things that you accomplish. And the only thing that I would say is just to continue to prioritize your physical and emotional health, because that's more important than your career.
It's really beautiful. It's wonderful. The whole mentoring thing is beautiful, especially when basically your accomplishments become my accomplishments, so to speak. It's very gratifying. And I look forward to the day when you're a mentor.
Yes. Tracy, I know Renee's not here, but we have the recording. We will have her watch this. Do you have any message for her?
I so enjoyed working with her as a mentor. So yes, that was a very positive effect on my life and my path at that point. And I just wanted to mention that she got a job at Cognizant where I was already at Cognizant, and I ended up helping her understand the Cognizant corporate environment for a change.
Ah.
We were kind of exchanging, but yeah, in the long term, she was supporting me and guiding me. So I really appreciate Renee's efforts and all her guidance. And yeah, it made me a better person today.
There was some peer mentoring happening there too.
Yes.
Peer and reverse mentoring.
Yeah.
And Deepak, same case. We will have Mark review or watch the recording. Do you have any message for him?
From one of the things Mark said, that this might be a little bit of a long haul relationship. On a personal note, now that we've been talking, he and I, we talk about life. I got married in the last few years, so he was definitely there, did an online wedding 2020, as many of us had to do. He's more than a career coach and a mentor to me. He's definitely a friend and somebody who I could, imagine one day I will make it to Australia and meet him in person. We text pretty regularly, and that's one of the things that I'd have to say about a program like this. This was definitely way ahead of the curve, before we all went remote and started talking on Zoom to people that we normally would see every day in the office before pandemic. So I think if anything, like, this is definitely just another way to make the world smaller and more interconnected. Hopefully, don't lose those in-person connections that you have either. I'm not saying that either, but at the same time, I think for all those folks that are around the world, this is definitely a very good way to just keep a friendship going and a connection.
I will play again a couple of videos from Mark. One of them is the message, the last one that I will play, but the other one I thought it would be nice to hear from him also on this aspect, because we go through difficult times in our work environment, and it's the persistence and the tenacity and just keeping our values intact while we're trying to solve our situation. I thought that it's worth for everybody to hear this bit of wisdom as well.
I think that was the only thing I could remember, was that we discussed We've tried for a while now to make a transition. It hasn't happened yet. Things hasn't really come through. But while you're waiting for that to happen, it's still a process that we need to learn to succumb to, right? Because if you give up and you get unhappy about that, or you leave, that is actually a sign of failure. I think we need to persist and keep working at it, and hard as it might be, show a brave face and accept the situation. I think he did in the end. He told me things were getting much better, and he has adopted an attitude of accepting what they are until the next step becomes clear. I think we all need to do that. I've been through that myself. And so I wouldn't want him to go to work every day being unhappy, being demotivated, wondering when I'm going to get out of here, because that actually is not good for him and not good for the organization. And I think he very successfully overcame that over that period of time. And I was very proud of that. Quietly, I don't think I've ever told him that, but I thought he did very well in that process compared with the earlier days. If you were to look at the scale analysis, I like to see him continue to develop his skills in being a leader. A leader needs to be able to speak his mind and be a thought leader in front of other people. Leaders are being followed not because they have authority, but because what they say carries weight. Now, how do you make what you say carry weight? And that is to develop your character and your commitment in terms of what you're passionate about, that people can feel when they talk to you about it. You cannot be passionate about everything, but the things that you are passionate about, you need to be able to communicate and let people know. Because then those people who consider those things to be important will say, if I have an issue, I'll go and ask Deepak. I would ask what his opinion is, and I'll ask him for his guidance. And if he becomes, I don't know whether he has become or he will become a mentor, he will make a very good mentor. And that will be a process that would help him encourage the next level of people in terms of their development. Because I think as you mentor, you also develop, because you start to care for people, you start to think about their well-being, you start to look at their skill sets, and then you see what you can do to help them. I like to see him move along those directions, and in his career become more and more stronger in his commitment and his passion about the things that he really loves and wanted to do well. And I think he'll get there.
Thank you very much to all of you. And I will request Rick if we would like to take in any questions, either from the audience in person or online.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Liesel and panel. What an amazing job the Mentoring Club is doing just from these few examples. And now you have over 300 people involved. That's amazing. A round of applause, please. Thank you. Thank you. I especially love that you're using the skills for career and life effectiveness to facilitate career development and transition. Positive transition we talk about is one of the important skills we talked about a lot already this week, and the Mentor Club is modeling that. So kudos and congratulations. We do have some questions here. So Dr. Clark was first.
Hello, good afternoon. Thank you for your wonderful contributions. I have 3 questions, but they are short ones. Firstly, the mentors in the group train before they are appointed as mentors. That's the first question.
When we started the session, the recruiting for mentors, I have recruited my mentor for the Mentoring Club, Margot, to actually conduct some sessions for our mentors, and we also recorded them. And then I had one-on-one sessions with all the mentors as well. But pretty much they're really basing the directions that they provide their mentees based on their journeys, and based on the inherent care that they have for the success of the mentees. But yes, definitely, we as leaders, we as managers, we don't automatically know the skills of being a good mentor, right? And so we have to go through that understanding of how can I guide this person because I care about their success.
Thank you. The second one, what happens if there are differences between the mentor and the mentee during the process? One, do they refer the mentee, or they decide that this is a process that's stuck and therefore I have to take it back to you as the administrator?
Luckily, we have not had any of that case, but the principle that all mentees are oriented on is that so I compare their journey in the mentoring club as like they're going on a long road trip. It's like a metaphor. We say that life is a journey. In this journey in the mentoring club, it's like you're on a long road trip where you actually decide the legs of the trip, right? So your initial goals, based on your initial goal, you allow navigators and guides to ride along with you, and they share their experiences. You listen to those experiences and sometimes suggestions. But at the end of the day, you are the driver in that road trip. You can decide to make a left, straight, or right. And in the process, you actually solidify your values, right? And because of the communication skills that we're fostering between mentors and mentees, like developing assertion, right? There could be a healthy discussion between the mentor and the mentee as to why the mentee decided not to go with the mentor's suggestion. And as I mentioned earlier, we have not had any experience that the relationship did not work out. So I guess the maturity is there so far in the mentor-mentee relationships that they're able to work it out. Yeah.
But what is the process? What is the process? Do you have a
Oh,
process for that
they
kind of
can,
situation?
yes. So they all go to me. Yes. For now, it's me. Eventually, we will have community managers that are taking care of our mentors and our mentees, and we will resolve issues through them.
Lastly, as I listen, I know that mentors are supposed to be facilitators, guides, advisors, counselors, all of these things wrapped up in one. And I was trying to determine if any of your mentors had to do another unique role modeling for the mentee.
For me, I have to model it not only for Nimreet, any other mentee that I would have, because if I connect with them and I'm stressed out, what does that say about me? So yes, it's absolutely true. It's you want to model success. And so you have to be able to show what works. And through our in-depth discussions, I would recommend certain techniques that she should use based on what I thought would help her in her case. And every single one of those were ones that I had implemented myself. So, so I could talk from firsthand experience. So that, that always helped for me. And it, and not just in the stress relief, but in mentoring I've done in other areas as well. I like to be able to draw from that experience to be able to help the mentee be more successful.
Okay, next question from Dr. Dave Root.
Hi, thank you all for the sharing of your experiences and the stories. And to piggyback on the last question about roles, we hear the terms mentor and coach interchanged a lot. And a couple of you talked about it, coaching as well. And there are different schools of thought about, coach does this and a mentor does that. But it seems like the mentoring club approach sort of pulls in coaching as well. And I just want to get your thoughts on coaching vis-a-vis mentoring or vice versa in terms of your approach to that. Do you, for instance, say, okay, well, this might be something you might want to talk with an executive coach about, for instance, or do the Pete's and Mo's, it sounds like you can also wear that hat as well. So can you just talk a little bit about mentoring vis-a-vis coaching and the approach the mentoring club takes?
So when I was starting the mentoring club, the basic definition of mentoring that I adopted is the definition that Margot has in her book. I did my homework before I met with her to request her to help me. And that definition is that it's a deliberate pairing of a more skilled, more experienced person with a less skilled, less experienced person with a mutually agreed goal of developing the less experienced person to grow in specific competencies. Right? So for mentoring, we look at somebody who has done the journey, so that the mentee can be guided, and they can avoid the failures that the mentor has already experienced. So there is a lived experience. When we talk about coaching, I think coaching is a skill and a tool that we as mentors use, because then we're able to ask the mentees to dig deeper into themselves by asking them questions to reflect on, how they see the situation, how they see their emotions, how they see potential for growth in themselves. So we use coaching as a tool, being mentors, but the mentoring aspect is like an overarching, it's a bigger responsibility. It's a bigger dimension in that relationship within the mentoring club. So we use coaching as a tool.
Excellent. Thank you. At Dr. Clark from Margot, develop an agreement that includes a no-fault conclusion when the relationship goes sour. That was from Margot, who's been doing that business for a long, long time. And Madeline Justice said, I like Mentoring Club, a very good way of helping others reach their potential.
Thank you. Thank you.
Excellent job. I'm so happy that the panelists were able to take time from their busy schedules to join us today. Were there any other comments or questions for the panelists?
Yeah, Gary Lowe, that I just wanted to thank Liesel and all of you for taking not just the time, but the interest in developing for Liesel, like from an idea and a concept and a vision, and working with someone, has helped us in our transformative emotional intelligence learning frameworks for a long time, Margot, and to work with such not just interesting, but such qualified people that are interested in developing, and emotional intelligence is one part of that. And then you pick up the other part from life experience and your goals that you're trying to reach. And then with people who have already attained that and are still trying to model that in real life. I really liked the presentation and all of the work that goes behind it. And I would really agree with the notion that around the modeling, that what's so important in the whole field of transformative emotional intelligence is to be able to model that in real life. And that's not being perfect, but it's being uniquely human and recognizing the human condition, and at the same time then understanding the ways that we can have skilled approaches in dealing with difficult instances, including career transitions and assisting people. So kudos and congratulations to all of you. And we would like you to feel a kinship, with our Emotional Intelligence Training and Research Institute that Liesel is part of, and when she can with her busy schedule. And we feel like that we're a learning community and would welcome you and love to meet you personally at any time. So thank you very much for all of that.
Thank you, Gary. And there are hundreds more. So I'll make sure they know about your invitation.
And I'd like to chime in and just say that this wouldn't happen without Liesel and her phenomenal commitment to this kind of work. She calls this, she's too humble to say this, but she calls this her give back. And she often talks about her relationship with Margot and how the difference Margot made for her as a young career professional, first in the United States, for her first time in the United States. And so, and how she wants to see others get the same thing that from their mentors that she got from Margot. And she's affected so many hundreds of lives, both on the mentor side and the mentee side. So it's awesome, the life work that she's doing.
Yes, bravo, kudos, very well done and said, Mo. Yeah, and I also saw a chat flip up on the screen from Lieutenant Colonel Schroeder that said a valuable resource that she will be perhaps using in her elective. She teaches at the U.S. Army's Command and General Staff College. That may be a good resource for mentoring elective in the college. So wonderful. Oh, I see one more perhaps comment or question from Dr. Clark. And meanwhile, I'd just like to congratulate Margot. Looks like you have pleasant weather there in Missouri today, out on the back porch.
Thank you. In counseling, the relationship between the counselor and the counselee is possibly the most important aspect in that whole process. How do you, as mentors, model and or deal with the serious challenge of confidentiality and trust in the process of mentoring?
My background is information systems development for 30 years before I ventured into my give back. And so when I was designing the platform, the Mentoring Club is a platform-based approach to mentoring. We built the platform on Salesforce. And when I was designing the process, the first thing that the mentors and the mentees have to sign when they decide that they would like to pursue, that it's potentially a good match for them, they have to sign an agreement where two major things are covered. Number one, that they will behave professionally between each other. And then number two, that they will treat each other's information confidentially. So the mentees that you're listening to today, they have given their permission to share their stories. However, those mentees that are in the platform that have not given us permission to share their stories, if we need to cite examples of cases of mentees that would be helpful to other people who may be thinking about having a mentoring relationship, we would anonymize whoever that mentee is. We would just say, in one case, this is the situation of the mentee. But in cases where we have gotten permission from our mentees, then we share their stories.
Wonderful. Thank you, Liesel and panel. I appreciate you sticking around past time. I know you're busy and wish you could be here with us. Perhaps if you're not so busy next year, you can join us. Yeah, what a wonderful concept, and congratulations again on pairing skilled people who have successfully made career transitions to help less skilled people do so. What a wonderful concept. Congratulations.
Thank you. And thank you to all the mentors and the mentees who have put their trust in the Mentoring Club, and for all of you also in EITRI, Rick, for guiding us through the process. And thank you to Margot as well.
Always my pleasure. Thank you. Take care.
Well, thank you. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.